Hey, what's crackin', Ultimate Life Forms? I managed to beat Sonic X Shadow Generations earlier this week, and I thought I'd do a short video on it. Not to just give my thoughts, but to hear some of yours. So once you get your gloves on the game, let me know what you think. And if you can't play yet, then have no fear, this video will be spoiler-free. And by spoiler-free, I mean I'll just be speaking on the first 3 levels, and the first 3 bosses. I'll warn you before the bosses, but any gameplay footage will feature those 3 levels. Most of these were revealed in trailers months ago, so there shouldn't be any surprises. It took me 3.5 hours to complete the main story, plus bonus missions, although I haven't fully explored the hub world yet. I'm playing on the Xbox Series X, and I'll mainly be speaking on Shadow's story in particular. I didn't watch anything besides the trailers for this game, not even a gameplay demo, so I was hitting this thing with fresh fingers. I want to avoid blindly glazing this thing up or needlessly tearing this thing down, so I'll just be giving my honest first impressions. Thoughts will naturally change over time, so just don't take this as my eternal opinion or anything. But for a topic sentence, I think this game was polished, well-paced, and thrilling. It's a Sonic game built for Sonic fans, and if you have any wherewithal of Shadow's history, you'll have a blast with all the level remixes and callbacks. But let's chop it up individually. First off, let's speak on the gameplay. How is Shadow feeling? Well, very snappy. Shadow feels slower than a Generation Sonic, but his speed comes from his attacks. They let you move fast when chaining together enemies. There's barely any delay between his teleports. If anything, you're encouraged to fight more to go faster. It's a nice callback to previous Shadow experiences. I like how they integrated his fighting ability and prowess into this game. There are speedy stretches in levels, but I had much more fun battling enemies, which is rare for me in Sonic games. I normally try to avoid them. Kudos to the designers on that part. Shadow also comes with a whole new bag of tricks. Homie and boosts are still there, but Shadow can also use Chaos Control to slow down the level, allowing you to platform on hazards or demolish frozen enemies. The ability is a meter, so you don't get it all the time, it has to build up. But there are item pods to replenish it, kinda like rings. Shadow also has Doom powers now. Doom Spears lets you open up guarded enemies or activate switches. Doom Blast lets you launch up and teleport towards a very unlucky alien. And Doom Wings lets you soar over gaps and into other areas. The last 2 powers, Surf and Morph, have to be activated in specific areas. Surf on the water and Morph in these designated sticky zones. Chaos Control plus 5 new powers seems overwhelming, but almost all of them felt instinctive to me, and the points where they want you to use them are clear. The only one I was having trouble with was Morph, as sometimes you gotta slow down and reorient yourself, since Shadow will stick to like a new plane of direction, but I think that will just come with practice, honestly. If I were to make comparisons, this game feels like a cross between Generations' spectacle and speed, and Frontiers' platforming and operability. Maybe leaning more towards the latter. But that's the fun twist this time around. Frontiers was playing with a wide open space, but Shadow Generations is working on narrow levels. You got that in Cyberspace previously, but the remixes here let the designers go a bit more wild in terms of speed and set pieces. I also think they did a great job displaying Shadow's power through the gameplay. Walls and laser fences can be traversed through Shadow's teleportation now. That's a great little difference compared to how we've been instructed to play as Sonic. Also, Shadow's homing attack range feels massive. I tried to compare this to Frontiers to see if this has been the norm, but I was surprised how easy it was to chain together enemies over huge gaps. Even if I wasn't speeding on the ground, I was constantly flying forward by targeting enemies. Maybe I'm mistaken on the range though, I have to see. So, I believe this game handles differently from Generations, but the balance of combat and speed this time around is a fun new mix. And with Frontiers-like platforming, you're much more confident rushing forward and leaping into enemies. I think anyone playing the last couple of titles will have an easy time adapting to this one. And I don't think Shadow's weapon wheel is too overwhelming for newcomers. I'm really liking it. But how about that story, huh? I won't go into any specifics, this is spoiler free, but I think they did a clean job wrapping together a lot of old backstory. Black Doom is here, and they didn't get too in the weeds with him, which I appreciated. Any new players should be able to catch on quick. No long diatribes about alien DNA or possible androids. You do get that, but they don't hit you over the head with it. Just a bad guy getting worse, and we gotta stop him. I do wonder if some Sonic lore masters will be disappointed in the ending, but it seems the real meat of all those loose ends is hidden in these collectible journal pieces and story fragments. I still need to go through those, so I'll have to see. But if you're really into Sonic's lore and history, I'd love to know your thoughts on that. I'm more curious on where they'll go with Shadow next, but it seems a lot of opportunities are open now. Should be fun. Something that did shock me is the animation in these cutscenes. These guys are so much more active than they were in previous games. Shadow is very emotive with his face, and little touches like shrinking the pupils or scrunching those eyebrows make him feel very real. Just compare them with the Generations cutscenes and you'll see what I'm talking about. Playing them back to back back was a little funny. And speaking of generations, I'll quickly comment on that because it's getting some fair discourse online. They rewrote cutscenes to fit more in with Sonic's lore and got the current cast to voice over or re-record old lines. I only got through half of Generations so far, but none of the changes felt monumental enough for it to sour my experience. My main concern is that I wonder if the rewrites will just end up confusing any newcomers. If I knew nothing about Sonic, I would be asking, where is West Island? What are the time stones? Am I missing out on something? Should I have known that? The funny, nice byproduct of Generations' oversimplicity in story was that it was perfect for anyone to jump into. You didn't have to know anything to play that game, which I think was intentional, to invite in both past fans and a general audience. But like I said, these changes felt so small, and Generations' story wasn't at the forefront anyways. I think this is mainly a conversation for Sonic fans, as it will pass by most other players. Either way, I got a couple chow, and I'm having a good time. But back to Shadow, let's talk about his levels. I like levels. I'm a level guy. What do I think about these? Like I said earlier, these don't necessarily have the blinding speed of previous games, but they are chock full of spectacle. I think the remixes are pretty faithful, with changes mainly being made to stick with Shadow's combat. Rail Canyon still got those fun rail switches, Kingdom Valley has windsurfing, and water surfing, heyo. I'm getting a much more platformer vibe this time, with speed being used to take you in between the more meaty combat sections, or to thrill you on set pieces. I was slowing down a lot for my own sake, so I could home in on enemies. And I enjoyed that. Act 1 of these levels will sometimes get interrupted by Black Doom, who will warp you into a separate zone for a bit. I feel like in the future, these are the moments people will complain about the most. Every time they do occur, they kind of rip you away from the focus you had on the original level, and once it spits you back out, the level can feel lengthy if it doesn't end right away. I honestly do enjoy those moments. They feature a lot of forward progression, and it's really fun to go through this crazy Doctor Strange Radical Highway hellscape. I just have a feeling people will get tired of those moments in replays. I think an easy fix would be to just have an option to play those levels without that section, but they might be baked in, so I don't know. But something I wasn't expecting was that these stages actually have 2 acts. Shadow does kind of have a classic mode, sorta. Act 2 is typically 2D only, but the speed never slows down here. Like I said, speed comes from fighting, and they put even more enemies in Act 2 to test your gaming abilities. Act 1 is kind of like the cinematic experience, and Act 2 is where they pump in more challenge. So you get the best of both worlds, in my opinion. I want to avoid digging into levels too much, as we have the opportunity for more in-depth comparisons down the line, but overall, I love what I see here, and replays have been exciting. Alright, boss time. So if you want to avoid any of that, get out now. Right now. Okay. So, truth be told, I honestly don't love a lot of Sonic boss fights. Most of the time, I feel like you gotta dodge repetitive attacks and wait for openings, with a final surprise at the end that can make you restart the whole thing. BioLizard was sort of like that, although I will admit he was a bit challenging on the first go. But the spectacle was great, and the music was pumping, I was having a good time. But Metal Overlord. Oh man, I haven't had that much fun in a boss fight in years. Is it because I love Metal Sonic? Sure, fine, yes, absolutely it is. But the entire fight is staged on the water, and it has you backhanding debris and jumping into dash rings like all the time. You're chasing him continuously, so even if it does follow a lot of my feared patterns, the fight always feels active. Also, I can't believe how much this dude is talking. I thought for sure they'd keep him as a big metal dinosaur, but Neo won't stop screaming at me, and he's so mean. Accept your fate, you fake hedgehog? I am the true ultimate life form? As if I could be challenged by an imposter like you. Oh god, did Sonic sneak him these lines? They're so direct. Plus, when he screams at Shadow to stop screwing around, I was like, are you enjoying this, Shadow? Is this fight kinda fun? For both of you? They practically play tennis at the end. It's like they're in on it. Plus, Neo throws a goddamn battleship at you. Twice! It happens 2 times. Okay, alright, this is as annoying as I'll get for bosses. Wait, no it's not, because Mephiles is here too, and he's also talking a lot. They also changed his voice here, and I kinda prefer it. He feels younger and desperate. He's less all-powerful and way more emotional. This fight, in general, was surprisingly emotional. Mephiles is fighting for his life, and he lets you know. He is scared of losing, and even some of his taunts feel like attempts to surrender. The fight itself is also surprisingly diverse. He uses a lot of different moves, and encourages you to use a lot of yours. I feel like we were on equal footing here. It was a great way at designing a fight with someone of a similar size. I really thought these battles were going to be short, annoying sections, but they stand out as some of my favorite moments in the game. Curious to know your thoughts too. Maybe I'm just being weird about this though. Okay, so that's the boss section. If you skipped earlier, we'll come back here. and wrap up. So overall, I think this side story is itself a very strong little game. It's got beefy, kinetic levels, a heavy emphasis on that mid-2000s attitude Shadow thrives in, and it's still very fun on replays. A lot of bonus levels have their own collectibles, plus a hub world that is not too daunting and fun to traverse. This thing caters hard to Sonic fans, and I mean that as a positive. Sonic Team kinda needed a nostalgic home run for a while now, and I think Shadow is the perfect opportunity for that. If I were to make like a fanbase theory, I could see people ultimately being disappointed on its emphasis on combat over speed, its short length, and how they dealt with all of Shadow's backstory. Every Sonic game kind of goes through a metamorphosis of opinions, so it'll be interesting to see how people look back on this thing. And hey, feel free to post your first impressions on the game as well in the comments. I mean, this could be like a little time capsule for us. But hey, this is a Generations game, and I'm comparing one of those levels next, right? Well, it might just be from this game, and it might get compared with a game I never wanted to come back to in the first place. Stick around, time travelers. But in the meantime, enjoy Shadow Generations for those playing it today. Super curious your thoughts, so don't be afraid to come back here and let me know what you think. I hope you guys don't mind a video like this. This is the first time I've been on the ground floor of a Sonic release and had the opportunity to chat with a bunch of people. I might do something like this when I finally complete some of the older games from my backlog like Colors and Rush, but we'll see. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next comparison. And enjoy Shadow and his Doom powers!